Hello and welcome to Let Me Be Your Game Guide, a podcast that spends each episode delving into a mystical new video game, exploring its charms and challenges, and helping you decide if it should be next on your list. I'm your host, Emma. Join me for this week's rating episode as I escape reality and enter the metaphysical. For the remainder of this episode, let me be your game guide. That was a really weird intro to record. Hi, if you're new here, if you've never listened to the podcast before, my name's Emma, and probably nothing seems out of place or strange to you, but if this is not your first time listening, you're probably wondering where the heck Rylan and Sean are. I'm typically joined by my partners in crime, Rylan and Sean, and unfortunately, neither of them could make it to this recording today. They'll be back, don't worry. Rylan will be back for our next game, and Sean hopefully will be back for the game after that. We've just had some scheduling woes. It's summertime, it's a very busy time for us, and we expected Sean to be out, but with our previous games, we had just been doing so much rescheduling, it just got to the point when this one wasn't going to work out. We didn't have anywhere to go. So, you're stuck with me, but I'm going to do my best. Hopefully these aren't too short of episodes. I really relied on the banter and the ideas and opinions of Rylan and Sean, so hopefully I don't bore you guys, but I played the game. We are playing Planet of Lana, and Sean and Rylan may still play the game, and if they do, we will just do a bonus episode. We'll make it available to everyone, but it will be one of our Extra Life episodes where if they played the game and they still want to talk about it, we'll give them the chance to. But this is a rating episode. Should be fairly spoiler-free, so if you haven't played the game, you're safe to listen to this episode, and typically I give my rating, Rylan gives his, and Sean gives his, but because they're gone, I thought it would be fun to maybe try and guess what their final ratings would be. So when we get to the end, I'm going to do my best to guess, and I'll do a reminder because I might even forget to tell Rylan and Sean about this, but Rylan and Sean, if you're listening to this, once it gets to the final rating part, and you have not rated your game yet, if you're playing, don't listen to it. And let's see how close I can get. But before we get too into this, let me just plug the podcast. Don't forget to give the podcast a follow, rate it, review it, however you want to show us love. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/letmebeyourgg, where you can view episodes early as they post sometime on Sunday, a couple days before the episode posts everywhere else. You can also find us on most socials as Let Me Be Your GG, and we're on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Definitely check out our YouTube. That's where all of our previous streams have gone. Rylan and I stream on the weekends every now and again. And then every other Thursday, the three of us get online and we live react to a trailer. And that trailer is one of our future games, whether it be one that we've chosen or if it's a listener pick, we go and react to it. We're usually a couple games ahead, so you can kind of spy into the future and see what we're covering if you wanted to play before the episodes come out. So check that out. Yeah, and if you're free on Thursdays, 5 p.m. Pacific time, that is every other Thursday. That's when we are live on Twitch, or you can catch it later on YouTube. We usually upload that about, like a day or two after the live stream. So check those out. You can also find us on TikTok as Let Me Be Your Game Guide with no spaces. And our other handle also has no spaces. It's LetMeBeyourGG with no spaces. And Rylan takes care of our TikToks. I love them. Maybe it's because I don't have to do them, but I love our TikToks. Every time I get a message from Rylan saying that one is finished, I'm so excited to watch it. So yeah, check out our TikTok. And if you want to email us, you can email us at letmebeyourgg@gmail.com. This is how you send in game requests. If you want us to review something for you, just make sure you include game request in the subject line so it's easy for us to find. All right, so before we move on to talk about the game specifically, let's talk about the developers a little bit. Planet of Lana was developed by Wishfully Studios. It was published by Thunderful Publishing, and it's available on PC, Mac, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, and Xbox Series S and X. Its initial release was May 23rd, 2023, and it is $19.99 when it's not on sale. This was Wishfully Studios' debut game. Wishfully Studios was founded in 2018. They're a Swedish indie game studio, and this is straight from their website. They have a passion for creating stunning artwork, deep storytelling, and innovative design. They're always striving to make games that leave a lasting impact. And I will say this game did leave a lasting impact for me. I'm curious to see how Rylan and Sean feel about it, if they do end up playing the game, if they have time. I loved it, and we'll get into that in the ratings section, but I know Sean picked this game specifically because they actually have a sequel. Planet of Lana 2 is coming out in 2026. I don't have an exact date, but sometime next year. And so getting to play the first one on the podcast also gives us a chance to play the sequel when it comes out. So super excited about that, especially, a little bit of spoilers, but obviously I enjoyed the game, so I am excited to play the second one. And just really cool that this was their debut game. So I will drop a few names here. The full credits for Planet of Lana will be linked in the show notes, but a few notable names I noticed in the beginning of the credits that seem to kind of head the production of this game and the creation. This is a Swedish name, so I'm going to do my best. Adam Starnlius. I hope I did that justice. I looked up how to pronounce it, but it's a Swedish name and I'm doing my best. Adam was behind the original idea for this game. He was also one of the directors. He was head of studio and a producer for the game. We also have Claes Martin Eriksson, which was a director and a writer. Robin Kohlberg, who was also head of studio and an executive producer, and then Maria Brunson, who was a co-producer. Those are just some names that I saw in the very beginning of the credits. Most of them showed up a couple times, so I thought I'd just name drop them here. But again, you can see the full credits linked in the show notes. And the accessibility report. We do have an accessibility report for this game, so I will also link that in the show notes. Again, I'm pulling this from the Family Gaming Database, so shout out to them. They do an amazing job, not only on the accessibility reports, but really on all information that you could want for the game. The ESRB rating, they even have games that are similar. They're great. I love them. So always happy to see when they have an accessibility report for the games that we're playing. And again, that is linked in the show notes. All right, so I've told you the game that that I played and rated, and that we're going to talk about. But let me just give you a quick spoiler-free description. This, again, is also from Wishfully Studios' website. I just thought it put it really nicely, so I'm going to read this out loud before we move forward. A young girl and her loyal friend embark on a rescue mission through a colorful world of cold machines and unfamiliar creatures. A planet that used to be a place of undisturbed balance between human, nature, and animals has now become something else entirely. The disharmony that has been in the making for hundreds of years has finally arrived in the form of a faceless army. But this is not a story about war. This is a story about a vibrant, beautiful planet and the journey to keep it that way. Chef's kiss. Just beautiful description. Couldn't have written it better myself, which is why I'm reading what they wrote, because it sounds so much better. But yeah, and I don't have Rylan here to say our painful pun, so I will say it. Don't worry, Rylan, I won't skip it. Now, what we've all been rating for. Let's get into the rating section. We take into account general considerations such as length, challenge rating, and replayability. We also consider story and narrative topics including plot, characters, and world building, presentation topics including graphics and sound design and music, gameplay topics including content variety and mechanics, and lastly, we consider the overall value of the game. So I'm just going to start off in general considerations. It took me 5 hours to beat this game. I think that if you look up how long it takes people to beat, typically it's between 5 and 6 hours. There are some little extras that you can hunt for and find throughout your gameplay. I did not find all of these. So going back to find those, replaying those chapters where I missed them, I can imagine it probably would take me about 6 hours to play, but if you're just burning through the normal plot, I would say between 4.5, 5 hours. Challenge rating. This is where I love to have Rylan and Sean because sometimes I feel like skill wise, depending on the games that you play, it can affect your challenge rating. But for me, someone who doesn't play a lot of combat games, likes puzzles, this one has a little bit of a stealth aspect to it as well. I enjoy those. And so I put this at easy. It's not beginner. There are some more challenging aspects to the puzzles or the timing. Timing can be really important in this game, but nothing that someone couldn't figure out after multiple tries. I know that there were a few sections that I found myself doing over and over again, but I didn't get stuck for very long, and I always was able to figure out what I was supposed to do. So I'm putting this at easy. I honestly think it might be able to get put at beginner depending on how often you play video games, but I guess I'm putting it at easy just because I think there are some challenging aspects to this game, but nothing that would make it moderate. So somewhere between beginner and easy. And then the target audience, this is where I give our ESRB rating, and this is rated E10 plus for fantasy violence. So not E for everyone, but I will say the fantasy violence is pretty minor. So if you're a parent wondering if your younger child can play it, maybe just play a few levels on your own to just make that decision. But E10 plus. And if you're interested in kind of puzzly, stealthy games, I think you would like this game. When we watched the trailer reaction, compared it a little bit to Neva. That was a previous episode that we recorded, and it had a similar vibe. It's a side scroller. You're kind of going through nature, trying to save your environment. You have a animal companion with you. So there are a lot of parallels to Neva, but after playing, I wouldn't actually say they're that similar other than what I just stated. Neva had a lot of combat. This Planet of Lana had no combat. It was very puzzle, timing, stealth, and it was very plot driven. There were a lot of sections that, you're just moving through the world and just experiencing the beauty of the game, which I appreciated. So if you're into games like Little Nightmares is kind of similar. Again, no combat, timing based, puzzle based, evading other people. This game also reminded me a lot of the game Inside. If you've played that game, you might know what I'm talking about, but if not, it came out in 2016. It's also a side scroller, very puzzle based, stealth based. You're trying to escape this kind of like factory, and it's very similar in the way that you're using the items in your environment to solve puzzles and move forward to move on to the next area. So Limbo could also be included in there. Really anything side scroller, puzzly, that's what I would compare it to. So if you're into that sort of thing, I think you'd really enjoy this. It's not as scary as those other games that I just mentioned. Inside and Little Nightmares, that series can be kind of considered horror. I wouldn't say that this is scary at all. There are some tense moments, but not scary. So don't worry if you're not into horror. I think you can still handle this game. Moving on to replayability. This one's a little tough. I loved the game and probably would replay it, but I think the only reason I would replay it immediately is to get those little extras that I didn't find. Otherwise, because it is so story-driven and the puzzles aren't necessarily super challenging, I don't see myself replaying it immediately, but this can be a game that I could put down for, a couple months, maybe a year, and then pick it back up and enjoy it just as much as I did the first time. So I would say it's kind of in the middle. It's a maybe, but definitely not something that you immediately replay. And now we're going to move into the story and narrative section of our rating, and this is where the numbered ratings start. We rate things from 1 to 5. And I keep saying we, like there's more than one person in the room, but it's the royal we, I suppose. It's me. No, but when Sean and Rylan are here, it's the same. We rate things from 1 to 5, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. And since we're in story and narrative, we're going to start with plot. And I gave the plot a 4.5. I'm leaving a little room. There are a couple things that I rated a 4.5 because it didn't reach that complete 5 factor. You're given so much lore in this game just through the exploring that you do. And I think there was just, because there's no dialogue, you have to take a lot in from your environment. You have to put a lot of clues together, and it's amazing. They're still able to feed you so much information without there being any dialogue. But I just wanted a little bit more. And hopefully we get that with Planet of Lana 2. I'm not sure. And I know you play the same character and you have the same companion, so it's probably a continuation of the story, but I don't know if it will build on the backstory of this planet. So plot-wise, 4.5, almost perfect. I loved it. Very heartwarming, very engaging. Again, even though there's no dialogue and you don't totally know what's going on, there you have a mission, and I was very driven to follow that mission. So 4.5. And then moving on to characters, I also gave the characters a 4.5. I found myself so attached to the characters so quickly. And we'll talk about it later, but I think it was actually because of a different aspect of this game. The developers worked with a certain composer who I think did a stellar job. The score in this game is, I'm getting ahead of myself, but the score really drove the emotions of the game. And right off in the very beginning of this story, you're introduced to our 2 main characters, even though one of the main characters we don't see for a while. But I believe that with the music and the way that it was composed, it just gets you so attached. And the way that the characters interact, I just thought it was beautiful. So I loved the characters, 4.5. You also get the cutest little companion. They're just adorable. So 4.5. And here I'm going to give the voice actors, like I said, there's no dialogue, but they're speaking, just not in a language that I understand. Maybe it is gibberish, but I don't want to assume. Maybe it's just Swedish and I don't speak Swedish. So Lana, the main character that you play as, was voiced by Bianca Zoe Mentelli. Elo, your friend that you meet in the very beginning, was voiced by Rosemary Petruzzelli. And then Rakuen, who is a character you meet later in the story, was voiced by Mario Scarabelli. So those are our voice actors. They did great. Again, audio that I don't understand, but it was not important to drive the character's story forward or anything like that. So I just thought I would drop those in. And again, this will also be included in the full credits that are linked in the show notes. And our last section for story and narrative is world building. World building, I gave a 4. I want more. And I'm super hopeful that in Planet of Lana 2, we will get more world building. But even with the very small amount of details that you're given, we do uncover some background of this world and, where the people came from and maybe where these enemies have come from. Like I said, that they are being overrun by enemies. I'll just say broadly. But I just wanted a little bit more, so I'm leaving it at a 4, but it was not bad. Obviously, 4 is a great score to give. And I just thought the world was beautiful. We'll talk about it a little bit in the graphics section, but there was so much visual depth to this world for a side scroller. I mean, it felt 3-dimensional, even though you were walking through in a 2-dimensional fashion. Unlike Neva, where the world felt very repetitive, like you were kind of in the same space the whole time, you do get different tastes of this world, different aspects, different environments. So I loved it. It was beautiful. Very exciting to interact with. So I'm giving world building a 4. Now that we've finished up with the story and narrative section, I'm going to move on to the presentation section, and we'll start with graphics. I've touched on graphics a little bit already, but I gave graphics a 4.5. I honestly, if Rylan and Sean were here and they wanted to give it a 5, I could be easily swayed to give it a 5. They're not very detailed. The faces of the people don't have a ton of detail, but it's just done in a way that's so beautiful. Like I said, the depth of the world is insane. They did an amazing job making any of the scenes feel so three-dimensional. I just thought it was very well done. Kind of like Neva, it is a lack of detail that somehow adds to the graphics. It's the simplicity that they use, especially in the people, that makes the environment and the background really stand out. So 4.5, almost perfect. Probably could be swayed to change it to a 5, but I loved the graphics. I thought it worked really, really well with the style of the game. And then I've already talked about sound design and music, but we're going to talk about it for a little bit right now. And I gave sound design and music a 5. I would give sound design and music a 6, 7, 8, 10. I loved the music from the moment this game started. It was cinematic. It sounded basically like I was playing a game but watching a movie at the same time. It really drove, like I said, it drove the emotions as you're playing. It gets you attached to the plot, the characters, the world. Everything is tied to the way that this score was composed. And then the sound design as well was amazing. I mean, you get all of these surrounding noises. You can hear like little beeps and boops of the robots out in the background. And then, you get that fun little like change in the music when something bad is about to happen. It really added to the way you felt while playing the game, which to me was really important because of how simplistic a lot of the puzzles and a lot of the gameplay was. But I was absolutely blown away by the composer who did this soundtrack. And let me just drop their name right now. The composer for this game was Takeshi Furikawa. He's known for composing the soundtrack for the video game The Last Guardian and the TV show Mythic Quest. At least those are the soundtracks that I found when I was doing some research on him. But he also did the soundtrack for the new live-action Avatar, The Last Airbender, which is going to release on Netflix. So I love Avatar, The Last Airbender, and the last live-action. It was so bad. I'm so scared for this new one. But I'll be honest, because I loved this composer so much, I might give it a shot just for the music. So check out his stuff, or, just play this game and experience it firsthand while playing the video game, because it was magical. It was perfect, in my opinion. I loved it so much. It felt very Star Wars in a lot of moments. So yeah. And now that I'm done ranting and raving about the sound design and music, let's move into the gameplay section, the last section of our numbered ratings. So starting with content variety, this is the lowest rating I gave this game, and I gave it a 3. Like I've said, there's no combat. There is puzzle solving. There is stealth. There are some chases as well, but I could have used more variety in the puzzles. I think they did a good job about the first half of the game, slowly building up all of these different puzzle solving aspects. You do get more usability out of your companion as you move through the game, but about halfway through the game, I would say it kind of stops and gets stagnant a bit. So it didn't ruin it for me, but I wouldn't be surprised if when Sean and Rylan play this game, if they had a little bit of an issue getting kind of bored with the functionality moving through. But again, I didn't mind it. I think my one major complaint would be there are some chase scenes that I wish lasted longer, because that was the most refreshing part of the game. You know, we get out of this kind of stealthy, sneaky solving puzzles, and then you're just in the action, just running. And there were a couple times that it happened, and I just wish we would have gotten either longer chases or more of them. So one minor complaint, well, I called it a major one, but probably would be considered minor. And then we're going to move into mechanics. Mechanics is the last numbered rating we're going to talk about, and I gave it a 4. The mechanics of this game are pretty smooth. They do suggest that you play with a controller, which is what I did. There are some clunky moments when trying to control your character and jump, and just minor things that could easily be looked past. But I wouldn't say it was perfect, so I'm not going to give it a 5. But very few complaints about mechanics, very smooth. And even when you're controlling, you control your companion and yourself at some points. And the mechanics of that were not hard to pick up. They weren't hard to remember. And I just found them to be very smooth. So the last thing I'm going to talk about before we get to my final rating would be the value. If I think this is worth $19.99 when it's not on sale. And this is tough. I'm going to say yes. I have a feeling that Rylan and Sean might say no. Only because when we get into the $20 range, I feel like you need a game that is longer, or if it's a shorter game, something that has a lot of variety, that keeps you guessing, that you can kind of, it makes it feel longer even though it is shorter. And this game is pretty simple. It's pretty basic. It's very plot driven. And again, like I said, the puzzles are not crazy difficult. So I am going to say yes, only because the music and the graphics and the way that this game was put together was so cinematic and beautiful. I think it's worth $20. It was about a 5-hour playthrough. So if you're not feeling like you can spend $20 on it, just wait for a sale. I think it will probably go on. I assume it will probably go on sale. Maybe right before the second one comes out, in hopes that more people play the first one. But I think it's worth it. I had such an amazing time playing this game. It was extremely emotional for me. And I just thought that it was very well done. So it deserves the $20. And for a debut game, how fantastic is that? Just right out the gate, you're making something that is making me cry. I did cry while playing this game. So, and we'll talk about that next week during our discussion episode. But for now, I'll just leave you with that. It was very emotional. It was very touching and rewarding. So I would say yes, it is worth $19.99. And as for my final rating, I am giving this game a 4.5. I will say that score, I believe, is heavily driven by the music. And I think it just goes to show how impactful a good score can be in a plot-driven game, in a story-driven game like this one. Of course, it's not like a walking sim. You do have other functionalities, puzzles, sneaking, all sorts of stuff that you're doing. But for the first time in a long time, I couldn't put this game down. I needed to know what happened. I wanted to keep moving through the story, and I loved it. So I'm going to put this at a 4.5. And now I'm going to guess what Rylan and Sean are going to give this game if they play it. If they don't end up playing it, I guess it'll just be left to a mystery. But I'm going to poke over to their game ratings. So we'll start with Rylan. I think that Rylan is going to like the emotional aspect of this game. I'm going to look. It looks like he gave Neva a 3.6. And this is tough because Neva had a lot of combat, and I remember that he was a little disappointed in the combat feeling kind of repetitive and easy, but I think that hurt the score a bit because he was expecting combat. So because you're not expecting combat in this game, I'm gonna say, and Rylan, if you're listening right now and you haven't rated your game but you plan on playing, don't listen to my guess, because I I want to see how close I get. So like fast forward or stop listening. So I think that he is going to like this more than Neva. And I think because Neva, I think it's better than Neva. I think he's going to agree with me, but I don't think he's going to go much higher than a 4. So I think I am going to say, I think he's going to put it near a 3.8. We'll say that. I'm stuck between 4. Let's go 4. No, 3.8. I'm sticking with 3.8. I think Rylan is going to give this a 3.8. The 2 other games that he has given a 3.8 are Evil Tonight and Balatro. So let's move on to Sean. Oh, and Sean, if you're listening, don't keep listening or skip like 30 seconds because then if you play, I don't want you to know my guess until after you're done rating your own. So looking at Sean's previous ratings. Okay, so he put Neva at a 3.5. Sean is our 3.5 guy, so he also gave Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion, Cavern of Dreams, The Dark Side Detectives, and Brothers. Those were also at a 3.5. I don't know that he's going to like this one as much as Neva. Because Sean is our hack and slash guy. And there's really no combat in this at all, but I think the story might be good enough that he bumps it up a little bit. Let me see, because he's got Evil Tonight at a 3.9. Oh boy. Yeah, gosh, anything without combat doesn't really break 4 for him. Okay, I think that he's gonna like this about as much as Neva, but I don't want to give him another 3.5, so we're gonna go 3.6. I'm gonna guess 3.6 for Sean. Okay, so those are my guesses. I guess a 3.8 for Rylan and a 3.6 for Sean. I gave this game a 4.5, but I typically am a little bit of a higher rater for the games that don't have combat and are more story-driven. I love a good plot. I love good characters, and holy shit, do I love the music. The music was amazing. I will say that this is the best soundtrack for a game that I've listened to so far this year. So I think it was great. Super excited to talk about this game next week. It will still be me. I will still be on my own for next week's episode, but don't worry, Rylan will be back for the game after that. So this concludes the rating episode for Planet of Lana. Please join me next week for the discussion episode as I dive into the details of this game and all its hidden gems. If you haven't played the game yet and it sounds like something you might be interested in, I hope you find time to play it before tuning in next week. Please go and give the podcast a follow, rate it, review it, however you want to show us love. You can email us with any comments, questions, or constructive criticism at letmebeyourgg@gmail.com. You can also send us game requests if there's something you'd like us to review. Just make sure you include game request in the subject line so it's easy for us to find. You can find us on most socials as Let Me Be Your GG with no spaces. That's LetMeBeyourGG, no spaces. And we're on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. You can find us on TikTok as Let Me Be Your Game Guide with no spaces. Our Patreon can be found at patreon.com/LetMeBeYourGG. Thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to see you next week. And thank you so much for letting me be your game guide. GG, y'all.
And that's why I'm not allowed at Walmart.
Wahoo!